Thank you very much. Okay, I've got choice, see you or see my notes, and I've chosen my notes, so I'm putting my glasses on. Okay, so good morning, and thank you for choosing to spend your next 10 minutes with me. I feel very grateful for that. I also feel very privileged to be able to talk to you for the next 10 minutes on a topic that I truly believe will take our fraud management capabilities, fraud prevention capabilities, to the next level. But it will require us all to hold our nerve, to extend our patience, and to also use our influence, if you like, to maintain the pressure to enable the changes necessary to turn the tables on the fraudsters, essentially. So we're all very aware of the challenges that the new regulation around reimbursement, mandatory reimbursement of APP frauds brings to the industry. And for those that aren't quite aware of one of the many challenges that brings is, let's just take a look at the APP fraud losses we're aware of that have been reported, and let's take the 2022 figure of £485 million that were successful APP frauds that year. But let's take a look at the fact that the banks actually only reimbursed 58% of those losses to the victims that year. What this new regulation brings, it actually means that majority of those losses, if not all of those losses, would have had to, and quite rightly, be repaid back to those victims that year. But actually for the fraud prevention capabilities or fraud prevention world, the experts out there, that would immediately mean a doubling, pretty much overnight, of fraud losses. When you combine this with the knowledge that a huge number of APP frauds are never reported in the first place, and that's down to maybe embarrassment or shame on the part of the victim, we know that once it becomes common knowledge that the banks will reimburse those victims back, then swallowing their pride is going to be pretty much a small price to pay, and they will report those losses. So how big is that fraud loss now? It has the potential to be huge. And then when you add on top of that the fact that we know that there will be groups of criminals out there, organized crime groups, that will come up with APP scams where one of the fraud crime group will be the victim, and they will fall for the scam, and then they will just approach their bank and claim their money back. So have their cake and eat it. It's a very classic organized criminal activity, first-party fraud activity. So now what does that fraud loss figure look like? It's a challenge, to be completely honest, that had the fraud prevention landscape deer in the headlights kind of reaction when this first came out. And probably it had the APP scammers or criminals probably cheering in the aisles because it pretty much guaranteed their income. But now the dust has settled and the fraud prevention experts have really had a chance to take a look at this, it's actually turned into, and I've waited such a long time for this moment, it's become that opportunity for us all to take that brave leap into the previous no man's land of true collaboration, sharing of intelligence, and doing it in real time. Now, I've been in banking and fraud landscape for 42 years, and we've been talking about that for 42 years. And we are so close to this actually being a reality, and I'd love to be able to see it before I choose to retire. So this is our sea change opportunity. It's just, I forgot, I had slides actually. So this is our sea change opportunity. But the thing is, we must seize this opportunity and we must own this opportunity. But it does require us all to do several things to make it a reality. I open by saying it really requires us to hold our nerve, to extend our patience, and to use our significant influence as fraud experts to keep this on track and create those changes necessary. And this is what I meant by that. The first thing we need to do is to properly understand our customers' accounts within our portfolios. All banks today in the fraud prevention and detection areas have great fraud tools, and these tools are very finely tuned to make sure that it's truly Jackie removing money from Jackie's account, or it's Jackie that has authorised the removal of money from Jackie's account. To do this well, those fraud tools must be powerful. They must be capable of working in real time. They must be able to understand complex rules and fraud strategies. They need to have the analytical capabilities to understand what's normal for one person isn't necessarily normal for others, and much, much more. What we need to do now is to really tweak those, in light of this new regulation, tweak those solutions and start to better understand the money coming into accounts as well as the money going out. We need to understand if we don't understand that, we won't understand when those accounts start to behave abnormally, maybe are controlled by a fraudster, or maybe are being used as a mule account. Our current tools can help our fraud prevention experts to do that. The banks don't necessarily have to rush to the market to see if there's something brand new out there that can help them with this challenge. And there are bodies within our own industry that are truly there to help the fraud teams to better understand how to spot a mule account, for example. And we should all be participating in those discussion groups. This will help those fraud prevention experts to write the correct rule strategies, and then we have time to mature those strategies, and then to mature those strategies to help bring down the false positives. Now, this isn't going to be brand new pain. This is pain that we've all gone through to mature our fraud solutions to the point where they are at today, which is truly understanding the money leaving our accounts. We just need to do the same to understand the money coming in at the same level. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we must use our significant influence as fraud prevention experts to maintain the pressure to create that central body or repository or platform that we're all talking about in order to be able to share and properly and truly collaborate. Having the ability to know the destination or receiving account's reputational assessment of their customer's account in real time will be key to our ability to prevent this type of fraud. If this is coupled with that change in regulation around the time limit we can hold a payment for, and we all saw that draft wording come out last week, I think the consultation's open until mid-April, then that will allow our fraud experts or investigators to properly investigate, dig into these, communicate with the potential scam victim, have proper dialogue with them, while at the same time be able to gather the right evidence. I think this is an additional element to the fraud prevention team's armour that's absolutely welcome. So if we can do all of that, then we have an exponentially increased chance to stop a potential scam victim from doing something they will later regret. So that's the second thing. And the thirdly, and this is where your patience comes in, there will be many practical and operational challenges throughout the early implementation of this new regulation that could, I'm not saying it will, but it could, and let's see, result in a delay to the go-live date later this year. But if we remain optimistic, and this is where we need to extend our patience, and truly seize this monumental opportunity to maintain the need and our desire for true collaboration, and I've wanted it for 42 years, then let's not let this slide beyond the necessary. We truly, right now, I truly believe, have an opportunity to make that one change that the fraudster has hoped we would never make, and that is true real-time collaboration and intelligence sharing. There are many industry bodies out there working together, as we've heard these last couple of days, to make this a reality as we speak. But because there are going to be hiccups and things tripping us up in order to get there, it does really require all of the parties involved to maintain that patience, but also the pressure as experts to really make this happen. The last thing we want to do is to slow down progress. Change happens very fast in the payments world, and it's actually made the topic of payments exciting in the last, say, 5 years, which has been a miracle in itself. And those changes that are popular are here to stay. Real-time payments are here to stay. And because real-time payments are here to stay, we as fraud prevention experts need to change our historical siloed approach to managing fraud. And if we don't, we do risk both reputational and financial losses in a big sense. I honestly believe that this small, almost insignificant regulatory change will result in our industry's biggest shift in how we manage fraud in our financial institutions. But there's a way to go, and we must hold our nerve and maintain our patience and pressure to ensure the sea change is not watered down. When the fraudsters are the ones holding their breath and crossing their fingers and hoping that we lose our nerve, then we know we're onto something. Now let's look to the future. It may be that with all of this change and all of this shift in focus, we successfully remove the fraudsters' ability to take money out of their accounts, and that would be fantastic. But we're already seeing that whack-a-mole effect, or squeeze the balloon effect that we often talk about in fraud. And we're seeing more and more cases now across the country where the fraudsters aren't asking the victim to move their money to another account. Instead, they're asking their victims to make purchases of high-value goods, which, for example, gold bullion, which they are then arranging with that victim to get picked up. And as much as that doesn't sound like it could possibly happen, it has, and it does, and in large numbers. So in this scenario, the scam victim, as I said, is not paying their money into another account. Instead, they're being asked to go and make some purchases from a merchant. Now, when this turns out to be a fraud and is highlighted as a fraud, not only is our account holder the victim, but now also the merchant is the victim. Because once that's been identified as a fraud, the merchant will inevitably be part of that reimbursement activity. And the reason for adding that piece to my 10 minutes with you today is really because the fraudsters are already looking one step ahead. Let's also make sure we remain one step ahead. So in summary, we have an opportunity here. Understanding our customer is key, both incoming and outgoing. But this is our opportunity, and this is the time it may actually happen. We must collaborate. We must exchange, must share intelligence, and we must do this in real time. And because real time is involved, we must use AI. You should use the tools you already have in order to get this ball rolling. The tools are super powerful and can do way more than just understand outgoings. Harness those tools now and give yourself time to mature those fraud strategies. We must maintain the pressure to effect this change. Without our expert team's voices being heard, then we will fall back to isolated and siloed attempts to manage this fraud, and we will fail. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. So thank you very much for spending your last 10 minutes with me.